अरे स्ट्रीमर कितने बिजी कर रखे हैं सारे। हो गया। Konda, what did you have? Idli?
No bro, I had dosa with pudina chutney, moong dal.
Oh!
Yeah. And fruits.
Bro! अरे हवा आ गए।
पूछ मत यार, सूखी ब्रेड खा रहे हैं लोग। ये कुछ लोग खा भी नहीं रहे, देख अमित की तरह।
अमित तो पतला हो गया बेचारा।
ज्यादा नहीं हो गया।
बोल रहा है कोरोना है तो मैं खाऊंगा भी नहीं।
पतले से ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम ही।
Bro, अरे अमित, what about all those chicken rolls, bro?
Where are the chicken rolls?
I mean, you used to have them every day, no?
No, not the chicken rolls. It was the omelette and parathas, not chicken rolls.
That is in the afternoon. I'm talking about late night.
Okay, I got it. I was chicken cheese paratha.
Yeah, chicken cheese paratha.
I even forget that.
Chicken cheese.
We should not talk about that. This is food. With Kish.
Kish. Where is Kish?
कोंडा एसी चला लो, बंद रखते हो हमेशा।
क्या?
एसी चला लो।
AC. I will.
We can also take a virtual feel, na?
Bro, you have good weather there, bro. If you go out now, you'll die of sunstroke, not because of corona.
In a small town of Tripoli, there is no good weather.
No, bro. I mean, at least not now. See, there's no other climates in Tirupati. It is more summer, less summer. That's all.
Is it tourist season? Yeah.
What?
Tourist season. I mean to say.
Tourist season.
Yep.
It will be there for like 5 to 10 days. That's all.
Okay.
There's no rainy season as such here because there are no rains. Hey, bro, why don't Kishu open his video? Bro, I want to see him.
Kishore! It might be Kishore! Don't make Kishore!
Dude, still in bed. Get lost.
Kishu?
Still in bed, macha.
You can show your face.
So,
You want to see your bad Kishore?
I don't want to.
Is it visible?
Bro, you
Yeah,
better
it's
switch on the video, bro.
Video's
Yeah,
on.
go and take bath, Kishore. Go and take bath.
Arey, still in bed. Why bath? I'll take it when I wake up.
Because Amit has also taken bath after so many days.
Yeah.
Taking bath every.
Oh, there in the bathroom. Did you forget that?
Huh? What?
Nothing.
What are you doing, Amit?
Just taking the copy. Oh shit. It's a contract book. Shit, I don't
Not
forget it.
now, Abhi. Like, whole day.
Whole day. I was just watching series.
ये kick कैसे करते हैं?
This Surabhi is kicking out everyone, dude. Achha noob.
Parth, I will show you. Just wait a minute.
You will kick me.
Kick me.
Yeah.
Arey, you wanted to know.
Yesterday I was asking, yesterday I was asking that only to Surbhi, but Surbhi was not answering. Surbhi,
गया सी यार गया
क्या
you not answering.
हाँ.
व्हाट
Yesterday you didn't answer that.
क्या
How? Don't kick me, but I am answering. I am asking that you didn't answer why how to kick.
Dude, Surbhi was kicked by Gayatri Joshi. No? Very good.
Oh, Surbhi kicked Shalaka yesterday.
She kicked many people out, bro.
Yep, Gayatri Joshi today. Yesterday she kicked Shalaka.
मुझसे सब बदला ले रहे हैं आज
तुझे कोई नहीं गिराएगा.
मैं कर दूं तेरे को आउट
नहीं मैं बोल रहा हूँ, कर रहा हूँ लेकिन
कर दो अभी.
चल कर रही हूँ
तोड़ा क्या हिंदी बोल रहा है तू.
एक गांव में किसान रहता था.
Tell the whole story.
हाँ.
Tell the whole story. किसान की.
बस एक गांव में किसान रहता था. What story you want? Bro, every किसान has a story.
इमोशनल स्टोरी
तू भी सो रही लग रहा है.
Very
सो नहीं रही हूँ उठ गई हूँ
तू भी बैठ पे क्या किशोर की तरह.
Dude, don't get too defensive, dude.
अच्छा सुरभि को कुछ कर रहे हैं अबे क्या कर रहे हो
हाँ.
और
अब
don't
सुरभि
start
को
that.
कुछ कर रहे हैं Stop this.
Hey, don't start that kicking out.
I
लोहित
didn't.
बी वेयर ओके
Yeah.
मिडल ऑफ द क्लास
It will be crime then. Surbhi, it will be crime to kick in the middle of the class.
अमित कुछ कर
क्या करूं? खुद को किक आउट कर लिया. This कोना.
कहाँ गए सब अरे क्या कर रहे हो उस यार
सर है यहाँ पे उत्सव
हाँ यार तू किक क्यों कर रहा है फालतू में फिर
अब नहीं होगा किसी को
भास्कर ब्रो डन
Oh, that's why kicked me out. So
Charu, are you online?
दो चारों है ऑनलाइन.
Yeah, Charu है ना? है तो.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So should I start?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So let me begin. Okay. Let me start with the right conferring provision in our Copyright Act. So we all are aware of Section 14 of the Copyright Act. Section 14 basically confers the rights to which a copyright owner is entitled to. But if you look into Section 14 very carefully, you will find that it has been. If you can just look into Section 14 in your BEAR Act. So in Section 14 of the Copyright Act is basically telling us that the copyright owner is having the right to do the acts which have been mentioned in Section 14, as well as he also does have the right to authorize others to do the acts which are specified in Section 14 of the Copyright Act. Now here, actually, let me take you to the old understanding of the Hoffelian rights. As you know that whenever there is a right, there has to have a corresponding legal duty. Suppose if X is having a right against Y, then Y is having a corresponding duty towards X. Now here, as you can see that the right to do and right to authorize others to do, these are two separate rights. And therefore, there has to be two separate corresponding duties. Now, if that is the scenario, if the statute says like that, in that case, we are actually authorized also means, say for example, authorize also means here that a person who is the owner of the copyright, he himself can Xerox, or he can ask his men and his employees to also Xerox. He himself can publish or communicate it to the public. Similarly, he can authorize his publisher, or he can authorize his men and agents to publish it. But at the same time, since actually they are two separate, independent, standalone right to do those things which are specified, and right to authorize the doings which are specified, since both are two separate set of rights, standalone right, therefore there has to be two standalone duties. Now, from this understanding, from this interpretation, we will look into this, that whether there be a liability for unauthorized authorization of the acts which are specified and exclusively reserved for the copyright owner. So far as this is concerned, you will find that actually I just want to mention that take any copyright statute, any common law copyright statute, it is be it Indian statute, be it the British copyright statute, which is CDPA, be it the American copyright statute, or any other common law statute, you will find, they invariably find that this word is there, to do or to authorize the doing of the acts. Now, so far as this is concerned, the meaning of the word authorize here, we will be looking into the statutory paradigm first, and then we will be looking into the case laws emerging across the common law jurisdiction. Now, at the outset, I must tell you, so far as Australia is concerned, Australia has in fact actually come out with certain provisions which defines what is authorization. Perhaps actually in this class we will not be getting scope to look into that statutory understanding in Australia, but let us, since we inherited the British common law system, therefore let us try to understand that how there are this interpretation. What is the meaning of the word authorization? What is the scope and ambit of the word authorization? And can this actually concept be used for the purpose of actually bringing in the secondary infringer into the domain of copyright infringement? Because we have seen there in America yesterday when we were discussing about the American Copyright Act, and the theories which have been developed in America, we have found that this is clearly case law based. But at the same time, American copyright law also uses this word to do or to authorize the doing. Now, to do or authorize the doing of the act, what is the extent and scope of this expression, this word? We will be looking at this in today's class. Now, as I have given you the logic is this, that whenever there is a right, therefore there has to have a corresponding duty. So when I am having a right to authorize doing the things which I can do as a copyright owner, the whole world is having the corresponding duty not to authorize. So what amounts to authorization? Therefore, we need to understand it. Now, in this regard, there are plethora of case laws. So far as the major controlling case law you can see in your screen, that is actually a 1926 case coming from the King's Bench. Now, there actually the issue was actually held with an enemy. There was a novel, and that novel was transformed into a movie. And then the question before the court was this: that when a person has authorized that movie to be played in a cinema hall, or he has allowed that cinema to be played in a cinema hall, whether it constituted an infringement of copyright by authorization or not. So the facts you can see from any other, even in internet sources. But let us come to the legal principles which have been involved in that case. Because as I have mentioned, that this word, this expression, authorized the doing, is there in every statute. Every common law statute would be containing this expression, authorized the doing. Now, in this case, actually, in fact, the court has adopted the conclusion were same. And the judges Justice Banks and then Justice Atkin, they came to the same conclusion that yes, the giving of the movie to the cinema hall, it amounts to infringement of copyright. But so far as the meaning of the expression authorized the doing is concerned, there is a kind of considerable doubt amongst the mind of the judges, and then they have formulated two basically interpretative standard so far as authorization is concerned. Now, there is a standard, and that standard is actually is coming from Justice Banks. And then what he says, since I will be sending you this slide, there is no need for you to write it down right now. So, according to Banks, he would be taking the ordinary dictionary meaning of the word. An ordinary dictionary meaning of the word says that actually the word authorized is to be understood in its ordinary dictionary sense of, what is the dictionary sense? That sanction, approved, and countenance. Now, what do you mean by sanction, approved, countenance? So we'll come to that later. Now, in the same case, although both the judges came to the same conclusion that yes, there was an infringement which was happening, but at the same time, he says that for the purpose of this case, it appears to me, when Justice Atkin says, to authorize means to grant or purport to grant to a third party the right to do the act complained of. So, see here, as you can see, that any form of sanction, any form of approval, any form of countenance would be coming within the parameter of authorization. Whereas so far as Atkin is concerned, authorization means to grant or to purported grant. If I actually expressly grant something, if I am expressly granting something, then only it would be called authorization. But if I am actually allowing certain things to happen in my premises, this cannot be considered as an authorization. So, see here now we have two different meaning of this expression. One, actually a very broad meaning, which means countenance, any kind of approval, any kind of sanction. And the second meaning is this, that actually there should be a kind of purported grant or grant. Now, so far as this understanding is concerned, this has created a kind of real difficulty in the interpretation of this word authorization liability. Now, you'll be asking me, you can ask me the question that why you are saying that authorization liability is a secondary liability. Here, I will refrain from making any comment. Neither I will say that it is actually a primary liability, nor I will say it is a secondary liability. But yes, this is actually perhaps a liability regime that can be used for the purpose of booking individuals who can also be brought under the what you call umbrella of secondary infringer. So therefore, here let us look into that how the common law countries behave when these two interpretations came up from the same case. So now, so far as USA is concerned, USA actually, as I have said, that in USA they have developed well-established case law-based principles which they apply for the purpose of actually addressing the issue of secondary copyright infringement. But when it comes to, however, there is also a voice which we have heard in certain cases in USA, which is telling us perhaps actually there is no need to look into those paradigms because the US copyright law itself also contains this expression authorize the doing of the acts. So now those are voices, and those are voices which are not being well accepted in America. But so far as England is concerned, so far as Canada is concerned, so far as Australia is concerned, this is a major issue. Now, we have read CCH Canadian at the beginning of our semester. We have read this case in order to understand the scope of originality jurisprudence in Canada. And precisely we know that the meat path which was adopted by the CCH Canadian in this case, the Supreme Court of Canada, the approach to Supreme Court has adopted, that has also been adopted in India in the case of Eastern Book Company. But in CCH Canadian, if you look into the case law, you do have the case law, you will find that there the court is actually holding, taking the wide interpretation and then applying it to CCH Canadian. Similarly, in the case of Moorhouse, and at the outset, I must tell you that this case, Moorhouse, was decided prior to that amendment which I was talking about in the Australian copyright law. That amendment in the Australian copyright law inserted a specific provision defining what is authorization. Maybe in the next class, please remind me, I'll show you that provision in the Australian Copyright Act. But now come back to England again. In England, actually, the debate continued that whether this narrow interpretation has to be accepted or the wide interpretation has to be accepted. Finally, what has happened in CBS, the issue comes up. CBS versus Ames record, the issue comes up. Here the court has come out with an interesting observation. The observation you can see in your screen, and I will explain what does it mean. See here, when you are saying that authorization means countenance, the word countenance, the dictionary meaning of the word countenance is actually very, very wide. It may mean sanction, it may mean encouraging, it may mean supporting, it may mean condoning, so on and so forth. So suppose if I am encouraging you to infringe copyright, that would also come under authorization, but that cannot be an authorization. So here, suppose if this issue is like this, say for example, if I am giving you a kind of fact, suppose here there is actually a video rental shop, and this video rental shop, along with the what you call rented CD, is also selling blank CDs, and those blank CDs are sold at a 5% discount. Now my question is this, that can it be considered as an authorization? So are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
So can you explain the example again, that rental shop?
Let's say that Advait is actually running a video rental shop, okay? And then in order to run a video rental shop, he has to take permission from the producer of the film and the producer of the sound recording. Let's say that he has taken permission from the respective copyright societies. So it is a valid business. When Advait is running that business, this is a valid business. So now my question is this, that along with actually video rental business from the same shop, Advait is selling actually blank CDs, and those CDs are being sold to the customers of his rental shop at a 5% discount. Now, obviously, it is actually the common sense will tell us those CDs will be used by the customers for the purpose of copying or duplicating the cassettes which they are taking home or the CDs which they are taking home. Now the question is this, is it possible for the court to book Advait under the authorization liability? See, you are getting my point. No, here actually a shop owner is running here there is a video rental shop or audio rental shop, and let's say that shop has taken due license from the respective copyright owners. In that case, he can run a business, because we know that the right of rental is an integral part of the right of the copyright owner in a cinematographic film, and also it is available to the owner of the sound recording. Who is the owner of the sound recording? The producer is the owner of the sound recording. The producer of the cinematographic film is also the owner of the sound recording. So now my question is this, that okay, your rental shop is a valid shop. So long you are doing rental, there is no problem. But along with rental, you are also selling blank CDs. And those blank CDs can also be used for the purpose of copying the video cassette, the the cinema which you have taken, and that too you are selling those blank CDs or let's say DVDs at a 5% discount. In that case, can we say, see, let's say that if we take the meaning of the word, if we take the meaning of the word in the sense of countenance. So countenance includes actually encouraging, countenance also encouraging support, countenance also means condoning certain wrongs which somebody is doing. So should we extend the meaning of the word authorization to that extent to hold Advait responsible under the authorization liability? The answer is no. So now what has happened, the English standard has changed. Now ultimately the interpretation given by Justice Atkin in the case of in Falcom's case is now perhaps become the norm in UK. And apart from that, I must tell you at the outset, today actually there are issues. See, in UK it is possible to basically book a so-called primary infringer or a so-called secondary infringer under three different perspectives. Number one, there is a statutory framework in UK which is actually section 22 to section 26 of the UK Copyright Act, CDPA. In addition to that, they have this interpretation of authorization. And then there is something very, very interesting which is called the joint tortfeasor liability. Now, what is joint tortfeasor liability? That is also very, very complex. And I do think that this we have mistaken the understanding of joint tortfeasor liability in India in the case of what you call Super Cassette Industries versus MySpace. But we will come to that. That becomes a very critical analysis. But since it is an LLB class, I will be giving you this certain basic information. So are you getting? There are two meanings. To be very precise, let me summarize. There are two meanings. One is a broad meaning, and that broad meaning includes encouraging, supporting, and condoning things. And there is actually a narrow meaning. The narrow meaning tells us that authorization means and only means actually a kind of express, as we have seen, that an express grant or a purported grant. So then this view that this narrow interpretation again, when it comes to the House of Lords, the issue comes up before the House of Lords in the case of CBS versus Amstrad. And what is CBS versus Amstrad? CBS versus Amstrad is exactly a replica of the Sony case in America. The fact situation in Amstrad, in CBS versus Amstrad is same thing. Like it is also with regard to certain video cassette recorders. So there the court again actually almost gave approval to the narrow interpretation, and perhaps now the narrow interpretation is the standard in UK. Now, so this is a tool. This is possible. That okay, we under the extended meaning of authorization, it is possible to bring in, perhaps it is possible to bring in, I will rather say, to bring in a wide array of secondary infringers within the umbrella of secondary infringers. So is it okay? Do you I understand this is very, very complex. This is very, very difficult interpretation of law. So please, actually, if you have any doubt, please get it clarified right now, because from here I'll be moving to the Indian understanding, and so far as India is concerned, we have only one case.
So can we have that logic that if Advait doesn't sell blank CDs, somebody else will sell?
Advait
anyway,
blank CD. No, Advait is actually not only selling blank CD, but he is giving 5% discount.
But sir, that is his independent business for which he doesn't require permission from copyright holders.
No, my question is actually, if we accept the wider meaning of the word authorization and the interpretation which has been given by Justice Banks in the case of Falcom. So in that case, Advait becomes liable because it is a countenance. But if we accept the narrow meaning given by Justice Atkin, Advait will not be liable. And ultimately, the English court held in CBS that Advait will not be liable, because in CBS case, the court adopted the narrow meaning, and later on also when the issue of what we call video cassette recorder comes up before the House of Lords, Lord Templeman also actually has accepted the narrow meaning, the narrow interpretation of the word authorization. So if we accept the narrow interpretation, in that case Advait is not actually authorizing infringement of copyright. If we accept the wider meaning, in that case Advait is infringing copyright under the theory of authorization liability. Is it okay?
Yes.
Any other doubt? Any other doubt? Now tell me, see, if suppose in this case actually, well, I am having a website, okay, and through my website certain infringing stuff is happening. So can I be booked under authorization liability? The answer is no. Why I cannot be booked under the authorization liability? It is very simple, because actually the narrow interpretation tells us that it must be a grant or a purported grant. Am I giving any express grant? Okay, please do it. Or am I giving a kind of purported grant, a tacit grant? No. However, if you take the wider meaning, in that case, countenance means actually encouraging, supporting. So supporting, encouraging will not be considered as actually a authorization liability, unauthorized authorization, so far as the current interpretation of the word authorization in England is concerned. Okay. So now let me come to the Indian.
Sir, but if you take narrow case in the case of website, so if it is coming in your website, it means that you are allowing it. So it means that you are sanctioning it.
If I am allowing you, if I am allowing, no problem. You book me under secondary infringement liability. You cannot book me under authorization liability, no? See, under the theory of unauthorized authorization, you cannot book me. So you bring in actually the other concepts of secondary. You bring in the concept of which is there in section 52. Sorry, see in section 51.
Yes, sir, but here in the case,
yeah,
in the case of CBS was the same records. Countenance in itself, the word means sanction, encourage, and support or condemn.
That is actually it is this word. This word is actually coming from CBS, and which has been approved again by Lord Templeman in the case of CBS.
Yes. So
now as the existing standard is this, that the narrow interpretation is accepted, and the narrow interpretation is the interpretation under which encouraging or supporting something cannot be called as authorization.
Okay.
And if you tell me that okay, if I am encouraging, yes, I will be liable for copyright infringement, not under the authorization liability. You book me under other theories of copyright infringement.
Okay.
See, whenever you are actually trying to book a secondary infringer, as a lawyer, you will be advising your client to bring in all the weapons which you have. So
yes.
You have actually, suppose here here let's say that Advait is actually doing it. Advait is selling brand series, say for example.
Yes.
So now let's say that for the time being, Lohit, you are the is it Lohit? I believe, from the,
yes, sir.
See, this is from hearing actually. I cannot see you, but Advait actually, let's say that now what is happening?
Yes.
What Lohit is doing, Lohit is the copyright owner. So Lohit has filed a copyright infringement suit. Now his lawyer would be advising him to actually raise the issue of unauthorized authorization. His lawyer would be asking him also to bring in the additional issue of what we call whether Advait can be liable under the as joint with tortfeasor. Then in addition to that, Lohit's lawyer would also be taking recourse to section 51. He will try to interpret section 51 in such a manner so that Advait becomes liable. So I am here only talking about the first head. which is actually authorization liability. And the logic is very clear. When I have a right, there is a corresponding duty not to authorize, and whether Advait has authorized that now. And therefore, in this case, the word authorization becomes very, very important. What is the meaning? So if we go by the narrow interpretation, in that case, Advait under no circumstances can be held liable as an unauthorized authorizer.
Okay, so basically, secondary infringement has a wider range compared to authorization infringement.
The wider interpretation is having a wider range actually.
Okay.
You can see if you take this now, you can see Justice Banks' interpretation here. No,
Yes.
if it means approved or countenance, in that case, Advait becomes liable.
Yes.
And if it is mean a grant or a purported grant, there is no grant. And then actually, if it is a secondary infringement liability case, say for example, in UK they will not apply that formula of contributory infringement or vicarious infringement. They have their statutory framework, which is section 22 to section 27 of the UK Act. And then here actually, therefore, they will also be, Advait will be saying that, okay, this is a staple article of commerce having substantial non-infringing use. So think about the difference which Advait can advance. So now, if there is a statutory framework in the form of section 22 to section 26 of the UK Copyright Act, if Advait is coming within the statutory framework, then he becomes statutorily liable. But suppose Advait actually the lawyer has failed to prove that he is an authorizer. The lawyer has also failed to prove that the case which Advaita is doing is coming within the four square of section 22 to 26 of the Copyright Act, UK Copyright Act I'm talking about. Then the third one will come, that what is joint tortfeasor? Is he a joint tortfeasor? Joint tortfishing is very, very difficult to understand. I will take this issue in the next class, but at the same time, please keep it in mind that this is very difficult issue to handle right now. Because in India, what has happened, unfortunately, the court has actually mixed authorization liability with tortfeasor liability. So this is not the case, because they are two distinct. I am quoting now the English authorities because you have read in critical legal studies movement that we do have childlike crave for authorities. Similarly, I as a corporate law teacher, not as a jurisprudence teacher here, do have childlike crave for Coppinger on copyright. Do have childlike crave for what you call Laddie Prescott and Victoria. So in the famous leading English commentaries on copyright law, it has been clearly stated by Coppinger on copyright that authorization liability and joint tortfeasor liability are two distinct standalone branches of liability.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, any other question you have?
Yes, sir. One doubt, sir. Authorization can be given by only an author or some copyright owner. How can a third party be liable for authorization liability?
See, it's very simple. Whenever I have a right, somebody must be having a corresponding duty, they prefer. If you are selling me your book at a price of 5, I have a right to get the book, and you do have a corresponding duty to get 5 rupees.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Then actually, when I have a right to do things, you have a duty not to do those things.
Yes, sir.
And when I have a right to authorize doing of the things, then you do have the corresponding duty not to authorize.
Yes, sir.
So, and therefore, whether it is a question of right for me, what is a question of right for me is a question of duty for you. And therefore,
sir, actually, I'm taking the reference of that website example you have given.
In a website cannot be held responsible under authorization liability.
Yes, sir.
At
That
the,
is
at the outset, I must tell you that under the narrow interpretation of the word authorization, a website can never be booked for copyright infringement. In order to book a website under copyright infringement, you have to take recourse to some other theory, not the theory of unauthorized authorization. And what is that? What is that theory? It depends upon the jurisdiction. If it is actually UK, I will be taking recourse to the statutory provision. In addition to that, if let's say that I do not know where from the websites are being launched, websites are being launched from some locations in Russia. In that case, I cannot reach them. You know. So in that case, there is a specific provision in the Copyright Act of USA, Copyright Act of UK, and that is section 97 capital A of the Copyright Act. 97 capital A of the Copyright Act. Since I have mentioned that section, I will just tell you the legislative history of that section. What is that legislative history of the section? The legislative history of the section tells us that this was actually incorporated and inserted in the British Copyright Act because of a directive of the European Union. So this is actually, in order to implement an EU directive, section 97 capital A was incorporated in the British Copyright Act. Okay. So now after Brexit, that section may go. And that section is basically what it is saying, that it is possible to pass an injunction order against a website which is not, which is actually a blanket injunction can be given even without the presence. Later court decision said without the presence of the defendant, an injunction order can be given if it is found that the website is actually is infringing copyright. So what is the scenario? Suppose here, since this issue has come, I am just elaborating a little bit. Then I will come back to again this authorization liability in India. What is this understanding? Understanding is this: suppose actually a copyright owner in London complains that actually certain website from Russia is infringing his copyright. In that case, he will be going to the courts in London to seek an injunction. Now that Russian website owner will never come to London to face a kind of what you call a copyright infringement case. So when he receives this actually summon, he will be just tearing and laughing. Nothing English court cannot touch. An English court, in order to, or the other option for that London copyright owner is to go and actually explore the possibility of filing a copyright infringement litigation in Russia. So what is this provision 97A talks about? This provision 97A is saying that, okay, in that case, the copyright owner can actually seek an injunction order against all internet service providers functioning in England to block the website. So this is actually a blocking, even without presence of that website owner, this blocking order can be passed. So this is actually a kind of express remedy which is expressly created in the form of section 97 capital A of the CDPA, Copyright Designs and Patent Act of 1988. So this is the background. So that is the normal route which is being taken by the English copyright owners to block infringing websites which are violating the copyright of their respective contents. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me come to the meaning of the word authorized in India. Now, here what has happened, the issue comes up, and this is actually, this judgment has been reversed by a division bench, and this judgment comes from the Justice Manmohan Singh of the Delhi High Court. And you know that now currently Justice Manmohan Singh is the chairperson of the IPAB. So, and this paragraph is directly quoted from Coppinger and Scone Jameson copyright. So, what he is saying, and to be very precise, although this judgment has been reversed by the division bench costing, and that division bench was also having Justice S. Ravindra Bhatt as one of the members. But what is this is the controlling paragraph. This paragraph has not been altered even by the division bench. Now, quoting Coppinger and Spongems on copyright, Justice Manmohan Singh says that in general, an authorization can only come from someone having or purporting to have an authority. An act is not authorized by someone who merely enables or possibly assists or even encourages another to do that act, but does not purport to have any authority which he can grant to justify the doing of the act. So now, let me explain this with the help of an example. Now, here, let's say that I will take the same example. Lohit is the owner of a cinematographic film. Now, Lohit has given a distribution right to Advait to distribute this film in, let's say, Tamil Nadu. And so far as the rest of India is concerned, the rights are given to other distributors. So in that case, suppose so long the question is this, that so long Advait is distributing the film within the territory of Tamil Nadu, it is completely valid, and within the scope of the license, he has not jumped, he has not gone beyond the scope of license. What he has done, he is perfectly within the limitations of the license. Now let's say that he is, one day what happens, actually in the border of what you call Kanyakumari, there is a gray area which is, no one knows whether it is Kerala or whether it is actually, say, for example, Tamil Nadu. And obviously there is a clear demarcating line between that. But by mistake, by a genuine mistake, he has authorized a cinema hall in the border of what you call Kanyakumari and Kerala to, and which in fact falling within the territorial limit of Kerala, to show that film. He has infringed. So he has infringed. In that case, actually, he can be straightaway brought under primary infringement liability, but it cannot be said that he has unauthorizedly authorized. Why? Because in Kerala, he has no right to authorize. If he is having no right to authorize, there cannot be any kind of authorization liability. So the authorization liability in India can happen only when someone is having a purported authority. If that person is having no authority, mere support, mere encouragement, mere actually condoning things, turning blind eye to certain infringement will not make it. Is it okay? Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, so with this understanding, let me go back to the technological paradigm. Okay, so I will start with the technology paradigm and now I will be discussing online copyright infringement. Is it okay? So I have already given you the background, and yes, there's one more thing I think I should also discuss. What is the secondary liability regime in India? So now actually I have discussed the scope of authorization liability in India, and that too, authorization liability is a territory which has not been widely explored in India. Okay. Now let us come to the Indian statutory understanding of secondary liability. Indian statutory understanding of secondary liability is there in two provisions. And these two provisions, you can please actually, it is there in section 52(1)(a), 1(a)(2), and then section 52(1)(b). This part, this authorization liability part, we have already discussed. Again, I repeat, I am not saying that second authorization liability is a secondary liability or primary liability. I am leaving it to you to decide. But there is a possibility of this kind of liability. Now come straight to the statutory provisions. So far as statute is concerned, we have two specific provisions. Now, I do not know whether these provisions are adequate to address the issue of secondary infringement in India. I have serious doubt whether these two provisions are clear enough to basically book online copyright infringers. So let us look and have an analysis of these two provisions. Now, so far as section 52(1)(a) is concerned, it talks about actually a secondary liability when a person is actually allowing his facility for copyright infringement for profit. On the other hand, section 51(b) of the Copyright Act deals with situations where actually an already pirated material is available, a infringing material is available, and that secondary defendant is actually dealing with or distributing or selling that pirated material or infringing copy of the work. Suppose whether he has done this infringing copy or not, that is not the question, but he is basically dealing or distributing with the infringing copies. So there are two different kinds of liabilities here. So now let me explain. Let me explain first, and then I will get into the nuances and intricacies of these two provisions. So now, say section 51(a)(2), I would ask you to read section 51(a)(2) first. Advait, section 51(a)(2).
Yes, sir.
So all of you, please read section 51, subsection A, clause 2 of the Copyright Act.
Copyright in a work shall be deemed to be infringed when any person without a license granted by the owner of copyright or the registrar of copyrights under this act, or in contravention of the conditions of a license so granted, or of any condition imposed by a competent authority under this act, permits for profit any place to be used for the communication of the work to the public where such communication constitutes an infringement of the copyright in the work, unless he was not aware and had no reasonable ground for believing that such communication to the public would be an infringement of copyright.
So therefore, this section has 4 essential ingredients. So let us look into the 4 essential ingredients. Number 1, there must be the defendant must be permitting a place. And my question is this, that can this be should it be only a physical place, or can it also be a virtual place like server? So the first question is this, the first ingredient is this, that the defendant must be permitting a place, and that place must be belonging to him, or that place must be something over which he has control. And that place is actually was given to someone to communicate the plaintiff's work to the public. And the defendant, the secondary defendant, the so-called owner of the place, or the so-called actually person having authority to rent that place, must be doing such doing that act for a profit. So this is the second ingredient. And the third ingredient is this, the communication which somebody else is making from that place, that communication itself is constituting an infringement of plaintiff's copyright. And the third and the most important element is this, that the defendant must be having actual knowledge that, okay, what is being done from that premises, from that place, is actually an infringement of copyright, or he should have known that it will amount to infringement. So therefore, so far as this knowledge element is concerned, we will obviously, if there is a direct knowledge, no problem, the plaintiff will succeed. If there is actually, if the plaintiff can prove that, okay, the defendant is having constructive knowledge, any reasonable person, any reasonable person would construe that something which is happening from the premises, and he would construe that it is amounting to copyright infringement. So if these four elements are satisfied, in that case an imposition of liability can happen in India. Now let me start with a simple example. There is a hall in Prem Bazar, and in that hall what is happening, this is a hall, and then Mr. X goes to that hall owner and says that I want to show a movie for the purpose of raising money for certain issues. Then the hall owner says, no problem, I take a rent of 3,000 rupees for 3 hours, so please pay me 3,000 rupees rent. So the person, the organizer, Mr. X, he pays him the rent of 3,000 rupees. Now the movie was been shown, and then it was actually the movie was shown, and then it was established that Mr. X has not taken the due license to show the movie. Now the question is this, that this is a fit case to book the hall owner under this provision of section 51A2, because all these ingredients are present. Number one, he has allowed his place to be used for a communication of the plaintiff's work. He had made profit out of it. Then actually the communication which happened through Mr. X was actually an infringement of copyright. And then the moment the Mr. X came to him and told him that I want to show a movie, he should have asked the reasonable question, do you have taken due permission? Since he has not actually taken the due permission, in that case what has happened, he has actually, the court will be construing that there is actually a constructive knowledge of the fact. So this is what the scenario is. Now the question is this, that let me extend it to the next level. The word space here, the place, as you can see in section, the word place, does it include virtual place, or does it include a kind of what you call a computer server? What do you think? Will it be like that?
Yeah, it's include virtual place also.
Do you have any case law to support this?
Not actually, but in case of websites and all this internet stuff.
The same case law in Super Cassette Industries versus MySpace, the court held. See, this was a case with regard to what you call safe harbor. The issue of safe harbor came up for consideration before the Delhi High Court, and this was a case regarding safe harbor. But still, the Delhi High Court, the division bench consisting of Justice Manmohan Singh, the single bench consisting of Justice Manmohan Singh, and as well as the division bench which was consisting of Justice S. Ravindra Bhatt, both these benches held that actually the word place in section 51A2 of the Copyright Act, it includes a virtual space. So a computer space is included. Now, does it mean that the infringing websites can also be coming under this? Because you have to prove all these factors. See, these are not standalone factor. When all these ingredients are present, then only a website can become liable under section 51A2 of the Copyright Act. So with this ingredient, let us try to understand what is the technology. And those who are from computer science and networking background, please correct me if I am wrong. And to be very precise, at the outset, I just want to tell you that this is highly technical and I will go very slow. So those who are from technical background, please actually discuss this amongst your peers and please clarify if they do have any doubt. In that case, also you can come to discussion forum. I can also participate in the discussion forum whenever you have any difficulty in understanding the technology, because this is precisely what you are supposed to do. Because you all are engineers, you want to. It is expedient on your part to learn this in a better manner, which is not there in a normal law school. So yesterday I have said that there is a law and technology rivalry. Whenever a new technology comes into existence, whenever a new technology emerges, the copyright law owners, they feel that this technology would be used for the purpose of actually reducing or actually cheating them or shrinking their revenue stream from royalties. But later on, what our experience tells us that we will find, and the history tells us that the copyright owners have adopted those means at a later stage for the purpose of dissemination of their own work. Initially, they all objected to that technology. Now, let me now tell you what 19 in an article which was published in 1948. An article which was published in Columbia Law Review in 1948, which is called, the name of the article is Some Reflections on Law of Copyright by Zachariah Shafi. And in that case, actually, he comes out with an excellent example. And that example is actually a kind where he says, actually, copyright law is actually powered by technological paradigms. So far, copyright was considered to be the Cinderella of intellectual property. Suddenly, what has happened? The fairy grandmother called technology has made copyright law, has brought copyright law to forefront. In 1948, he writes, today, perhaps actually, what has brought copyright law to the forefront is the communication and duplicating technologies. And there are, here I will discuss three different technologies. One is P2P sharing technology. Then I will talk about the cyber lockers also. And then so far as P2P is concerned, there are three different generations of P2P. One is centralized server-based P2P. The second one is actually a decentralized, truly decentralized P2P. The third one is actually a mixed model. So again, the third one is a mixed model. There is no problem. There is a traditional mixed model, and there is something called BitTorrent model, which is another model which is structured on the premise or the protocol of the mixed P2P sharing platform, but still it is completely different from the other P2Ps. So far as BitTorrent is concerned, I will discuss BitTorrent separately in a separate class. So let me start. Let me begin. What are the different types of P2P? And if you want to learn about P2P and how a lawyer perceives P2P, please read this case. This case was with regard to the torrent website, but in the beginning of the case, the judge has given a very nice analysis and very lucid analysis of the P2P framework, the protocol. And this case was actually, again I repeat, this is a 2013 case coming from the 9th Circuit Court of Appeal, but the judge has actually elaborately explained all different models of P2P. And as a layperson, as a lawyer, it would be helping you to understand this if you read the first part of the case, where he has given a kind of elaborate introduction about different models of P2P. So here, there are three different models, as I have said. That P2P, before I begin, let me tell you. See, when the computer technologies came up, initial days, there was no bandwidth. You are browsing certain things. You type the website address, then you go to a coffee shop, have a coffee, and when you come back after half an hour, you will find that it is still opening. So the most easiest form of actually creating a sharing platform is to upload every material, every content in one server, and then from that server you download. But if the bandwidth is slow, even today also it is very slow, it takes a long time to download a movie. But suppose actually what happened, if that is the model, in that case actually there is a client and there is a server, and the client goes to the server is having all the contents, and from there the client downloads the software as the content. But actually this is very problematic. Then a person comes up, his name is Sean Fanning. So Sean Fanning, he actually come out with a very effective sharing platform. What is that very effective sharing platform? So Sean Fanning is actually, the copyright owners considered him to be a major culprit of the entire copyright owners, what you call from the perspective of the entire copyright owner. On the other hand, the Sean Fanning is considered to be a genius by what you call the networking professionals. But at the outset, I must tell you, this is my personal opinion, that Sean Fanning actually has written a brilliant program, a very short program, and the name of the program was Napster. So what is this Napster model, how it works, or how a central server based model works? Let me explain this central server based model. Now here you can see, actually I will again take this example. Here what has happened, Lohit is having a website. He maintains a website, and that website distributes a software. Now that software can be downloaded by any client. A client here, 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 a client here. Suppose this software has been downloaded by Advait. Now when Advait has downloaded this software, it would be shown as a desktop application. Now he has decided that he will be sharing a specified content with other peers, other users of this system which has been developed by Lohit. Now, what is the other system? Other system is 1, 2, 3, 4. There are thousands and thousands of users. Now, in order to share this, when this application is downloaded in the desktop, then all the files which Advait wants to share with others, that has to be converted into a standard format. And that standard format conversion will happen through this desktop application which Advait has downloaded. Now, next time when Advait is logging into the system, this system is actually maintaining a dynamic directory. What is that dynamic directory? It will show now Advait has logged in, and then Advait is having, these are the files to which Advait is having in his computer. And then in the meantime, let's say that here is a user called Mr. X. He can see Advait has now logged in, and these are these files which he can, which is available in Advait's computer for sharing. Similarly, Advait can see that Mr. X has logged in, and these are the files available in what you call in Advait, in Mr. X's computer for sharing. So let me tell you how it works. So this is actually the format, how it works. So Napster has been shut down today. Long back, see, you can see here the screenshot. What is the screenshot? The screenshot you can see here. The moment someone is logging into the system, it will show that who all have logged in. The moment actually somebody is logging out, the entire list available from that user would also be delisted. The others will not be able to see the list. The moment, so that means actually in order to share content, you have to pass through the central server based model. And then the central server, what the central server does, keep it in mind, the central server is only maintaining a dynamic directory. And I tell you, keep it always in mind, the central server does not store any content. It is only maintaining a dynamic directory. The moment someone is logging in, his contents would be shown in the list. The moment he logs out, the content would not be shown. So it is possible for Advait to share with Mr. X, and Mr. X can share with Advait only when both of them are online. The moment they log out, they cannot do anything. So central server again is only, what are the purpose? The central server is giving you a desktop application. Initially you go, you create a username and password, and then every time you have to log into the central server to get access to the other peers. So the question now is this, that this protocol was used by two software developers who maintained website. One software developer is actually, obviously I have mentioned about him, his name is Sean Fanning. The other software which came up is actually called MStar. So the validity, whether they are contributory infringer, whether they are vicarious infringer under the US law, came up for the consideration of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal in the case of Napster, and it came up for the consideration of the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeal in the case of MStar litigation. So yesterday we have read the basic framework of vicarious liability and contributory infringement liability. Now let us see that whether this, what it says, and can this be applied for the purpose of actually any doubt in understanding this protocol? Any doubt in understanding the centralized server-based peer-to-peer sharing protocol? Any doubt?
No, sir.
So this is similar to DC.
100%. In DC, do you require a password?
Sir, in order to access the IIT Kharagpur DC,
User ID password required.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then it is a first generation P2P. It is actually a P2P, which is first generation P2P. So now I am here, since you have brought in the example of DC++. So the person who is maintaining the server, the person who actually, obviously you have to download a desktop application, I believe. And when you download a desktop application, you have to create a password every time you are logging into the system, and you have to promise that you will be sharing certain content. Maybe some 40 GB content, I do not know, or 30 GB or 20 GB content you have to share as a mandatory condition. So when you are doing this, okay, in that case, actually, the moment you are logging in, an user, another DC+ user in DC++ can see that, okay, so and so and has logged in, and these are the contents which are available from his computer. Similarly, when you are logging in, you can see who all have logged in and what are the contents available from their computer. But here, one thing I just mentioned, here this content, that actual music file is not residing in the DC++ central server. It is residing in your computer. It is only facilitating the other users to know your content through a dynamic directory system. Now, suppose you have sent a request. You have sent a request that, okay, you want actually a particular content about copyright law from the computer of, say, Advait. Now, the central server here will process that request to Advait, and simultaneously the central server will send Advait the URL of the computer in which the content is available. And when this is done, central server has no role to play. Advait would be establishing a direct communication protocol with that computer and will be sharing directly. Please note that peer-to-peer sharing system is an answer to centralized storage-based system, and therefore a P2P sharing system does not store any content, whether it is first generation, second generation, third generation, or the most advanced, what you call BitTorrent protocol. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Any doubt? Those who are from non-computer background, see, I do not have any background of computer science. I have understood it from a layman's perspective. So those who are from non-computer background, if you have any question, and if it is within my knowledge, I will definitely answer. Please do ask. I am asking those who are not from computer background. Okay, should I proceed further?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now as I have mentioned, there are two first generation P2P sharing software, and there are many. But however, two protocol, the Napster protocol and the MSTAR protocol. And let me also tell you the distinction between Napster and protocol and the MSTAR protocol. MSTAR protocol was also a first generation protocol, but the only additional feature which was available in MSTAR protocol was this, that here actually the entire communication between two peer computers, a peer computer of what you call here Advait is a peer and the other person is also a peer, and the thousands of peers are there. But these peers actually, when they communicate with each other, this communication is in an encrypted form. So since it is an end-to-end encryption was being used, it is not possible for the central server owner, the person who is maintaining the central server, to know what are the contents, the exact nature of the contents which are being shared. So that means actually it is very well possible in the MSTAR protocol for the owner of the MSTAR protocol to say, I was having no knowledge what is being communicated through my system, because I was having an encryption technology, and that encryption technology basically did not allow me to know what is passing through my system. So let us see. Now the Napster issue comes up for the consideration of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal. Now we have read yesterday the two theories. Now before I show you the verdict, let me also tell you, what do you think? That can Napster be held? Can Napster be held liable under the contributory theory? What are the two elements? What are the two elements of contributory theory? The two elements of the contributory theory are knowledge of the infringing activity, and secondly, what is the second element? Second element is substantial participation. Substantial participation. So substantial participation is happening. 100%.
Yes, sir.
100% happening substantial participation, because you are showing a thief the torch. You are showing the thief a torch. Oh, please come. You are showing the thief torch to a thief. Now the question is this: that do I have knowledge? Is it possible for me to monitor all the data packets which are passing through my computer? So, because under the contributory theory, you have to prove both, knowledge as well as substantial participation. Now, let us look at the vicarious liability theory. In vicarious liability theory, what are the two elements? The right and ability to control the user. And then the second theory is actually, the Napster must be gaining some direct gain. Now, let me tell you that Napster, do they have the right and ability to discard an user? Can Napster say, is it okay, I will not allow you? Yes, they have right and ability to control. Secondly, they are not taking any money from the client. There is no doubt about that. But actually, from the advertisements which were being shown in the moment you log on to the system, the advertisements which are being shown in Napster, from that Napster is gaining. So can they be held liable for vicarious infringement? What do you think?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Under both theories, or under only contributory theory or Napster, this thing? See here, let me give you the answer. See, this is actually the case law, the AM Records versus Napster. Now the question, as I have asked, is maintaining centralized index a material contribution and which material contribution is a necessary element of contributory liability. The answer, I have copied it from the judgment itself. The answer says that Napster did provide site and facility for direct infringement. This was held to be sufficient material contribution. Now, the question of knowledge here, actually, I will now come to the understanding. See, you have a policing power. You are having a policing power. You can actually you can basically discontinue an user. You can ask the user to maintain a kind of standard protocol, and if the user is not maintaining that standard protocol, you can say that you are not allowed to do it any further. I am actually discontinuing your user account. This can be done. But but to escape here to vicarious liability, the reserved right to police must be exercised to its full extent. Now, suppose actually I have a right to discontinue an user, and I know that user is doing something which is constituting copyright infringement. In that case, this would be actually showing a blind eye to detectable acts of infringement for the sake of profit gives rise to liability. Therefore, the Napster becomes liable. Napster is shut down. Music lovers are highly disappointed. So what do you do? So Napster shut down. The first generation, the Sean Fanning, the excellent program he wrote, shut down. In the meantime, he has become almost like billionaire. Napster owner Sean Fanning, he started distributing it to his university, and then by the time it was shut down, he was actually a millionaire. Now comes the Emster, and Emster comes up before whom? Before the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeal. And who is this judge in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeal who writes the judgment? The famous law and economics scholar, Judge Richard Posner, he writes. Okay. So Judge Richard Posner, what he writes, here, as I have mentioned, the only difference between the Emster protocol and the Napster protocol was this: in Napster protocol there was no encryption, and then the Emster developer they understood, okay, since what is passing through my computer, if it is not encrypted, in that case the court will construe that I have knowledge of what is happening through my system. So the moment it happens, they incorporated the what you call encryption feature. Now the question is this, that incorporating of encryption feature in the first generation P2P model, will it save the P2P service provider from the contributory liability? The answer is no. Why? Here, since he is a law and economics scholar, he has brought in the law and economics context. What is the law and economics context? The law and economics context is actually, if you prove that, okay, separating infringing data from non-infringing data is disproportionately costly, it is very costly and burdensome, you will escape liability. But if it is proved that with a simple technological development, with a simple technological incorporation, you are able to basically separate infringing data from non-infringing data, and if that actually incorporation of that technological measure is not that costly, you cannot avoid contributory infringement liability. So here, as you can see in Emster, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeal, and again I repeat, the judgment was written by Judge Richard Posner, and he found that Emster is liable. So this is what the case law is. And now one more thing I just want to mention. So far as the second generation P2P and the third generation P2P is concerned, and this also came up for the consideration of the American Supreme Court in the case of Grokster versus MGM, and there the court had to, perhaps actually the court found it in a precarious condition, because they found that the existing theories of two liabilities, the contributory liability theory and the what you call vicarious liability theory, perhaps cannot be applied to book a second generation or third generation P2P model, which we will be discussing in the next class. We will be having our next class as actually our CR tells us, but I will be finishing this. In order to finish this, I need 2 to 4 hours class, and after that I will discuss what we call fair use doctrine, which will also require 2 hours of class. So can you please actually, I will now sign off, and if you have any question, second generation, third generation, and B2P and BitTorrent model we'll discuss in the coming class. Any doubt?
Sir, can you mail this PPT, sir?
I will see, once I complete the lecture, I will mail all PPTs, and I am in the process of preparing the PPT for the entire copyright course. So once it is ready, I will send it to you.
Okay, sir.
So you don't have any question? You have understood this complex technology and also the equally complex nuances and intricacies of the legal application?
Yes, sir. I mean,
okay,
little bit of confusion is there, a bit of reading would do.
Okay, and then one more thing. I will be then asking that open book kind of question, because I don't know whether the examination would be online or offline.
Okay.
So any question about any other person? Devkrika, do you have any question?
Sir, hello.
Yeah.
So, if there is a continence, then there must be some monetary benefit in accordance with that.
Countenance, see, commercial benefit has nothing to do with copyright infringement. At the outset, I must tell you that whether you are making profit, whether you are gaining or not, it is immaterial so far as primary copyright infringement is concerned. I have made it clear that primary copyright infringement is a strict liability tort. Whether you have gained, whether you have spent money from your own pocket is immaterial, because this is coming within the strict parameter of injuria sine damnum. Sorry, so this is injuria sine damnum means actually even if there is no actual damage to the copyright owner, but just a violation of the copyright owner's legal right would be, the infringer would be liable for copyright infringement, irrespective of the fact whether he is innocent or he is not innocent, or the question whether the copyright owner has in fact lost a huge deal of money or no money is immaterial. The moment an injury happens to him, the defendant would become liable under the copyright infringement liability.
Sir, I have doubts not particularly related to this topic, sir.
Yeah, can you be a bit louder?
Yes, sir. Sir, I have doubts not particularly related to this topic, sir. Sir, but memes, sir, the memes are the copyrightable or not, sir?
What is copyrightable?
Memes, sir.
Memes.
Yeah,
Memes are copyrightable.
Are copyrightable, sir?
Memes are copyrightable provided it satisfies the test of originality. It satisfies the test of Trinity.
Hello, sir.
The question which I have understood, the question is this, that whether memes are copyrightable or not. No.
Yes, sir.
My answer to this question is this, that if a meme satisfies the copyrightability test, the trinity of copyright, that means originality, not it is an expression, not an idea, and it is fixed. Obviously, it is fixed in a tangible mode of expression. What prevents us from actually granting copyright protection? The next question is this, that is it a parody? Is it a parody or is it a satire? So parody and satire is based on a pre-existing material. So if parody and satire, if it is a parody or satire, and if it is based on pre-existing material, then we have to look into the domain of fair use. To what extent fair use is allowed and to what extent it is not allowed.
Yes,
Sir,
So please, actually, Amit, is it
Yes, sir.
Amit who
Yes, sir.
asked
I
this
will-
question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Amit, actually, please actually reserve this question till we discuss fair use. In fair use, obviously, we'll be talking about parody and satire.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Then
hello, sir.
one more question. I got it from Tendral. I think Tendral, if you are here, I think you got the answer because I wrote a mail. And I also got a kind of what you call question from Sparsh Sharma. So Sparsh Sharma is not related to my class, but with regard to copyright, I have answered that question. Did you get it, Sparsh?
So he's watching on YouTube, sir.
Okay, YouTube, is it does it mean everyone, the whole India is watching?
No, no.
Do it actually. See, YouTube has a feature. It is restricted only to a group. Please do it to group. Okay.
So Utsav can do that. So Utsav is.
Okay. Okay.
Sir, I have one question. Sir,
This is who?
The part.
sir,
Okay.
I'm Parth.
Okay. Please do ask me. Please.
Sir, you mentioned parody. I did one course on copyright law of US. There they have a concept of transformation, which
See,
goes beyond
that is
fair use. So, is that concept available in India as well? Concept of transformation.
it is available. It is actually in USA they do have a 4-prong test.
Yes.
4-prong test under Section 107 of the American Copyright Act.
Yes.
So there actually the question is whether it is sufficiently transformative or not. So to be very precise, in India, the Indian court initially they applied a kind of understanding coming from the British court, which is almost similar to the American understanding of fair use. So the name of the case is actually Hubert versus Vosper. Now, so far as sufficient transformation is concerned, it is in India, and you can read that sufficient transformation, how it has been applied in India in the case of what you call Masters and Chancellors of Oxford University Press versus Oxford University versus I think that is I'll just give you. This is with regard to mathematics books of Oxford. Okay, so.
Textbook and guide case. Yes, sir.
I'll see this case and the American doctrine which you have studied so far as the sufficient transformation is concerned, and it is well covered in the copyright course with regard to the fair use. I will be discussing in in great detail these issues. Okay.
Okay.
So I am having one doubt. Hello.
Please.
Sir, as you given the example of that Kerala and Tamil Nadu example, that renting hall for unauthorized film. So, can we say that India is adopted the narrow interpretation of that unauthorization?
I will refrain from saying that. I will refrain from saying that because Manmohan Singh's judgment also contains the paragraph which talks about the wider interpretation, which I have not shown you, but maybe actually I'll send you the case law. You can look into. He in one paragraph he wrote the narrow interpretation. In another paragraph he wrote the wide interpretation. But ultimately, what has to be given precedence over the other, he has not mentioned. But I believe actually I will refrain from saying that in India we have a narrow interpretation or a wide interpretation. I have laid down both interpretations, and perhaps actually it is right time to give a kind of express verdict favoring the narrow interpretation, because the wider interpretation will bring in a person, anyone can be brought in within the domain of countenance, because countenance also includes condonance. Condone.
Right.
Suppose somebody has done something, I am turning a blind eye. I am not telling him anything. This would also be an authorization. I don't think that the scope of authorization has gone to that extent. In this regard, I think the view given by the House of Lords is the correct understanding.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any further question you have? So I think when is our moot court?
4th May.
4th May. So this would be online, okay?
Yes.
So 4th May, what time part? Please let me know.
Sir, I will let you know through message.
And the way you keep on sending me link, please do send. I do not know how to do it.
Sir, should I send it link to whole class or those who are participating?
No, you send me to the because whole class, if they want to participate, I have no problem. But please send it to the whole class, and those who are muters, they have to do it. Okay. So, any further question you have, please?
No, sir.
Okay. So tomorrow I'll start with second generation P2P. Is it okay?
So tomorrow you want to take class?
No, not tomorrow. Then the next coming week. Coming week.
Okay. Okay.
Coming week, whenever you are free. Anyway, I have my scheduled class from on Thursday and Friday. So Thursday and Friday anyway I'll be taking. But I think I missed one class. One more class if I take, I think I will compensate the missed class. So that way we can do it sometime in the afternoon.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So.
Thank you, sir.